Welcome to Deal Talk. My name is Jeffrey Veit. This podcast is about avoiding dealer tricks and buying smart so that you save big when you purchase a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome. We've been talking about it for a long time now. We cover some of the automotive news and what you should do and say when you're buying. We cover all that stuff. Boy, there's an alarm going off this week. Some really big news. The biggest thing I've seen change in the car business in a while. That's a huge alarm. And it's underhanded. And, well, I'll get to the point here. It would seem one of the big advantages to leasing is being stolen by the manufacturer's credit sources. It seems that last month, most of the credit sources, which would mean collusion if they did it all at the same time, for leasing have decided to control your ability to trade and deal if you have a lease with them. So if you leased a vehicle from, let's say, Honda, you can't trade it in at Chevrolet. They won't let you. Or if you leased a Chevy, you can't trade it in at Honda. This is unbelievable. If you have a lease with one of the affected companies, you're not able to trade it with a competitor. Wow. You can't realize any of your equity trading anywhere else. So you've leased and made a smart move and leased, did a good job, right? Taking care of the vehicle, made sure it was good for resale, and you want to go trade it in at a Chevy dealer because now you want some other vehicle, maybe a Chevy truck or something. You can't. They've shut the door on that. You got to turn in the lease and just go buy one, which is, you'd say okay, except for the fact you might have, because of the increase in the used car market, new vehicles being, not manufactured as much as they were because of the chip problem, and used vehicles are going up in price, and you have this tremendous advantage that you would have equity on the vehicle. Can't do that. You can only trade it in if it's a Honda, with a Honda dealer. That's it. Otherwise, you just turn it in. That's just crazy. This is a criminal act. If you have a lease already, I guarantee nobody told you that when you started the lease. So the truth in lending is a problem because they didn't disclose that to you. That's a breach of it for sure, if nothing else is. And even if the contract was since then, if they didn't have you sign a disclosure saying that you knew that and explained it to you with proof, then that's another truth in lending problem. They have to tell you about this stuff in advance, not later on down the road. And they think, well, we own the vehicle anyway. No, you don't. Truth in lending says leases are almost like a buy. And they are, and they should be. You have all the rights. So the big advantages to leasing was that you could turn it in if you don't want it, right? Or you could buy it if you wanted to keep it, right? Selling it or trading it within a competitive dealer, they're taking that away. That takes money right out of your pocket. Not every single lease would make money by trading it in, but most would right now. And the manufacturers are trying to shut that down. This is like taking away freedom of speech in the automobile business. It's crazy. You don't have the right to trade your vehicle. That can't happen. That's not the way it should be. If you have a desirable model, this change could cost you thousands. Your bargaining power is gone. Myself, I've traded my vehicle every time, and I've received more trade than the residual value quoted. Had the lease company told me that when I leased that I would not be able to sell the vehicle myself or trade it in, then that would have changed everything, the whole process for me. I have contacted the FTC, and the person I talked with had not heard of it. I have contacted the Attorney General, but we need more complaints. These guys may not pay attention. This is an FTC issue. This is a federal issue. This is absolutely truth in lending, no question about it, especially with the people that already had a lease. You can't do that. They're already, and this started in June, so there's been people who have already been cheated out of thousands of dollars by the manufacturers, and nobody's done anything about it. The FTC has to wake up on this one. Yep, you got to get something done. We all have to stand up about it. The change may be legal for future leases, maybe. As long as they disclose it to you, they could change that. And in that case, I would not lease with a company that had that rule. So Honda will never get a lease from me again if that's the case, unless they sign a disclosure saying that I can trade it or sell it myself. Yeah, you can't even sell it yourself. Yeah, well, you can't even retail it. They're trying to control that. And even before the public announcement, though, that's definitely, nobody can argue with the fact that that's underhanded and a breach of the truth in lending. I mean, even, and I don't care if the government wants to sit on their hands, if they're playing hands with the businesses. I don't care. I don't know what the lobby is for the automobile lobby, but the automobile credit lobby, but this is definitely underhand. That's like a mortgage companies saying, you can't trade your house. You can't sell your house unless the people get a mortgage with us. You can't sell it outright. No, you got to go through you got to go through a real estate agent that mortgages with us. Yeah, it'd be the same thing. And if they get away with this, how long before it is that, right? We think for a second that they can't do that. They've already done this. They've made this change. I called them, a couple of them, and they're like, no, you can't do it. You can't trade it. Yeah, they were like, they're not ashamed. They don't realize because nobody from the federal government has said anything to them. I want everybody to call the FTC, which is a federal office, or your state attorney general. The FTC number is 877-382-4357 or 202-326-2222. Call them and tell them how you feel. Don't let these guys get away with it. This is crazy. There are people out there with leases that doing this is going to cost them thousands of dollars. That's no exaggeration. Now, for your state attorney general, you got to look that up yourself, whatever state you're in. This is just a slick, fast move by the industry that specializes in cheating the public whenever they can to begin with. They've been cheating people since cars were invented. Since World War II, for sure. That's when it all started, I think. The government got involved. Well, this is one time when they get a chance to get it back. I don't know. I have no confidence in the Department of Justice, but I have no reason not to believe the FTC is straight shooters, and they could help the people because this is way ridiculous. This is a ridiculous thing. This would stop, all the advantages to leasing. I'm only talking about leasing at least 3 years. You're going to just want to turn the vehicle in at the end. It's a 3-year lease and you don't mind that. Then leasing is still the way to go. But you know what? If I can't sell my vehicle or trade it in, I'd have to change my mind about leasing. Yeah, they can't, what they're doing, I'm telling you, they can't do this. This is something where they're going off on their own and they're waiting to see if the FTC does anything. Anyway, enough said about that, but that's a warning. So anybody who's thinking about leasing, put on the brakes for now till you find out what's going on. Another thing is the red-hot used market has increased the trade equity on your lease. So that's the other side of it. So because of this red-hot market, I don't know if I mentioned that before, I probably did, but not only are you giving up some before, now you're giving up even more because the market is hot. So the trade that you would have maybe made 1,000 trade-in on extra, now you're giving up 3,000 maybe. So don't let them steal it from you. You got to make some noise. Squeaky wheels get oiled. If there is no penalty, there is no crime. You got to say something. I'm talking to the FTC. I'm talking to the Attorney General. I'm trying to get something done. Help out. Call them. Tell them. This is ridiculous. I read this week that many manufacturers are working on special sensors for your vehicle so you don't have any problems with forgetting a child in the car or a pet. You read that in the news lately where people have beaten down the windows because of the heat wave and people are leaving their kids or their pets in the car and it kills them because of the heat. Well, heat sensors aren't really the answer. I mean, they'll probably help, but kids or pets should not be left in a vehicle to begin with. Some companies are working on warnings to make people aware that they start to get out of the vehicle. It reminds them that their child or their pet is in the vehicle. It may sound silly to some people, but people do it. In fact, I know that there's been a lot of research showing that people can forget about that sort of stuff if they're stressed out and got their mind on a lot of things and just forget. They don't do it on purpose, but it doesn't change anything. It still ends up killing the animal or the child. I'm not familiar with it enough to recommend any aftermarket units, but Elfo, E-L-E-P-H-O, and Steelmate are a couple that attach right to the child seat. I think they give you an alarm. I've never used one, but I know that they're in the marketplace, and something's better than nothing, anything, It's definitely animals dying from this. And you have a right. You're in most states, I don't know your particular state, whoever's listening, but in most states, if you see an animal in a vehicle, and there's no one around and the sun's out and it's hot, you can break the window legally and let the animal out or protect the animal. Now, the problem with that is if it jumps out and kills you, that's the other side of it. So it's better if it doesn't happen to begin with. I think that if it's a Great Dane or something like that, I'm going to call the cops right away, and maybe I would break the window anyway, just so it could breathe and get the heat out of the vehicle. But that's just crazy what's going on. We need to get more research on it for sure. The research shows that almost anyone could forget. So it's not like you can say, well, people just don't forget. No, the people can because they're stressed out and they got a lot going on. I mean, look at society, how stressed it is now. I mean, people are angry and there's a lot going on. And no matter which side you're on, whether you're on the Democrats or Republicans, people are angry and want to create problems. And so you got to be aware of that, and people can make the mistake. So let's come up with some ways to make sure that they know. And one way would be with some of those aftermarket units I talked about, LFO and Steelmate. There's a lot of new safety features on the way, as a matter of fact, in the marketplace. Smart headlights is one I'm looking forward to brighten. When there's a pedestrian, let's say on the side of the road where you're driving, it'll brighten that area or darken the light hitting the windshield of the car coming towards you so they can't get blinded from the headlights. If you happen to leave your bright lights on, it would, dim it in that area. I think that's very cool. Or it'll outline someone on the side. That's one that I read about that I thought was pretty interesting. If somebody's standing on the curb and you're driving down the street, those people will be outlined in red, just to let you know that they're there in case, they jump out at the last minute. You'd have some idea or whatever, but I think that's a good idea too. All with the new headlights. Very cool. And they're working on one for bicyclists too, a warning. So that, how that happens? You're driving along on your bike and somebody opens their car door and bang. I've had that happen, and I've seen it happen in parking lots where people open their car door and somebody drives into it, or on the street they'll open their car door and not think and get out of it when the cars are coming, and all of a sudden the door's ripped off the car. Well, there's an alarm that you can get on some vehicles now, and I think it should be on all of them, that tells you when somebody's coming so you don't open your door, or at least warns you that there's someone coming so you can open it more carefully. So there's a lot of things on the way. You want to watch for those. You might want to make a list of which ones you want. There's an article in, what magazine? I believe it's Consumer Report about new technology, but you can read about it in Car and Driver and stuff like that, in magazines like that would give you some indication. But I think that the smart headlights is really a big one for the future. If you like the show, take a couple of minutes and do a review on iTunes and Google Play if you would. If you've already done a review, thank you very much. Those of you who would like some written material, don't forget about the Informed Buyer on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You go onto the website, you can download it to your smartphone or to your tablet or whatever. I'll give you the basics for a quick reference, and it's $3. That's right, $3 to help you buy a vehicle can end up helping you save thousands. So if I was you, I'd buy it, but I don't know. If you don't, you don't. We cover the F&I department a lot, right? AKA the business office, you know what I mean? That guy that does your paperwork to complete the sale, you know what I'm talking about, that guy. He's the guy that's usually the sharpest dressed and sitting in his office and bags under his eyes from being there late all the time. But it's not like the old days where the department got its name because of life insurance and accident health insurance and vehicle loans. That's why it was called F&I, finance and insurance, because there was a lot of people would buy accident health insurance and life insurance on their loan, which doesn't happen too much anymore. And most dealers don't even offer it because they don't want, if they do offer it to somebody and they forget to offer it to somebody else, they can get sued. So if they just have a policy where they don't offer it to anybody, they can't get sued for it. No, most dealers don't offer it at all because of that reason. Now F&I, the AKA business office, offer other products and services, right? Nowadays, everybody's been through it when they bought a vehicle, right? There's a lot of things in an auto deal that a person needs to deal with. One of those is the finance office. That's probably where most of the products are purchased along with the vehicle. And they explore the angles in your deal and, the financing, and they get involved in your private information. And it's a big part of the deal, no question about it. That's the department of the person that securely arranges your loan, right? After you've made a deal with a salesperson and the management, you go to F&I and they're doing your paperwork and they're talking to you about products and they're talking to you about your credit. And they have a myriad of products, no question about it. Some good, some not so good. But none of them are free. There's no free stuff going on in the F&I office. They also arrange your payments, but they're not talking about free. In handling your financing, they try to establish an interest rate that will allow them to obtain some reserve payments. And we've talked about that before, commission from the bank. So if the bank lends money at 6% in your case with your credit score and they sign you up at 7%, they get a kickback on that extra percent that they got. The banks arrange that. Now, under the current laws, you don't know how much that is, and you're not told. I think that when there's a kickback coming from the bank, you should be told. And you know what? if the dealership's giving you the best rate that you could get, and you went out and shopped the banks and you couldn't get anywhere in the dealerships the better deal, who cares what they make? I mean, at that point, right? They're still the better deal. But I think you should be told. That's part of the profit potential. That's part of the negotiation. If you knew they were making $1,000 on the financing, they might come down another couple hundred on the vehicle. That's true. That's sort of like the leasing we were talking about either. Everything's a secret with the banks. They think they can get away with anything. They get a commission for sending the business to the bank. That's what it's for. If a finance manager can offer a good rate, like I said, then we don't need to worry about it. If they're giving you a better rate, who cares they're making money? And even if they beat the terms that you come up with, okay, and let's say they're giving you a good rate, doesn't mean that they have to specifically charge you that extra rate. Just because they can, right? It's okay that they make the money, but if you knew about it, how much it was, maybe you could negotiate out of it. I don't know. Before dealing, one of the things you need to do in this case, when you go in the F&I office, one of the key things going well in the business office is for you to be educated before you go in there. First of all, you should have checked with all the banks you deal with, 3-4 banks, every single time. Before you even go to look at cars, you should have checked and see what the finance rates are and stuff, and what kind of terms you could get. So you can say to them, no, I got a better terms than that. Here's what I got. All you need is a credit score and a telephone. You can do that. So it's not like it's a lot of work. The public generally doesn't shop interest rates because of that. Average profit per deal in the F&I office is $1,800 around the nation. That's the average. The average F&I manager on every deal sold, they average $1,800. Now, some people aren't making anything on it. What's that mean? It means on some of them they're making $3,000, $3,500. That's the average, right? That's a lot of dough if you ask me. And some auto groups are doing better than that. Some are averaging higher numbers than that. I mean, the cream of the crop in their industry, how they look at things, they're making more than that. And it includes the cash deals. So keep that in mind. That's a lot of money that you could be leaving on the table by not shopping this stuff. You're talking about, if it was a $2,000 difference in the deal, you're talking about a couple $1,000s over a 5-year loan is what? That's a lot of money. Yeah, so what would that be? That would be $40 a month. Yeah. Another job of F&I is to try and sell other products to enhance the purchase, like an extended warranty, paint protection, fabric guard for your seats, rust proofing, prepaid maintenance, low jack security, or other security items like glass etch, tire hazard insurance, gap insurance, dent protection. These are all things they can offer you. There are items that might have been on the addendum label, too, that you've had that's already negotiated into the deal. Like it might have had on there paint sealant and a stripe, so that's already in there, so he doesn't need to talk to you about that one. That's that label next to the Monroney sticker. And some dealers do that. Some have stuff on there that you've already negotiated into the deal, and you don't have to worry about it, so you're already buying some stuff. The technique used commonly to sell these items is generally clumping them into 3 or 4 groups and listing them on a menu card. That's how they do it. And they can have any myriad of whatever those particular options are that they're pressing that week or that month or what that dealership believes in. You know, they could be selling anything. There's hundreds of products that they could be selling, so I really can't speak. But they'll have a card, most stores now. It'll have, things grouped. And then how much it affects your payment. They'll have the biggest group, and then the next group of options, the next group, and they get down to finally where you're only buying one thing, gradually offering payment increases. There's everything, almost everything, and then some of everything, and then only one thing, and then nothing. So you got 5 choices to go through. The payment increase figure could be based on the current deals criteria, or the F&I guy could be extending the term to make it softer. That's why CPI is so important. The only people that are approached with total price being mentioned are the cash buyers. Cash buyers, they can't talk about payment, right? But if you're financing, if you're not on top of it, how do you know that you're not going from 60 months to 66 months if you didn't know what it was to begin with? You got to know that all the time. That's why CPI is so important. This kind of selling plays into one of the techniques we've talked about before, packed payments. We've gone over this quite a bit. This happens when you make a deal based on monthly payment. You're given that is higher than the actual monthly payment. They don't quote you the actual payment. They quote you an amount $30 or $40 higher than what your payment would actually be. And when you go in the F&I office, that's what gives them a padding. They're not going to cheat you out of that $40 for nothing. But they use it as the padding to make the things that they're selling in the F&I office seem less expensive because they've padded the monthly payment. So something that would make your payment go up, let's say $40, it's only going to go up $20 because part of it comes out of that pad. It kind of built in some room for the guy to negotiate. I'd estimate that this technique is used at different levels, of intensity. 80% of the dealerships in the United States do it. Yeah. That's a guess, but it's an educated guess. That's for sure. If you end up not buying anything, they just say, oh my gosh, we must have miscalculated. Your payment's $30 less than what we thought it was. That savings helps nullify the aggravation you feel from the efforts made to sell you, the pressure they've used on you to try to get you to buy stuff. Optional stuff. It's tough to catch the payment packing con because the dealer doesn't keep the bump. They just use the extra dollars to help sell the F&I products so they seem more affordable. How do you know when this is happening? What can you do? First, like we've talked about many times, and foremost, is when you get a payment, it's got to be CPI. You make sure you know how much is it based on, what's the interest rate, how many months they're using. Every single payment quote, every single time. If it's a lease quote, you also keep the driving mileage allowance per CPI, complete payment information. So you not only get the months and the amount of money or the vehicle, all you really need to know is the months and the mileage. We talk about this a lot, and I mention it at the end of every episode because it's so common. Just asking for this information will usually discourage payment packing because if you check it, they can't explain the difference. It is a good thing to have a payment calculator with you as well. You can download one from the net, from the App Store or one of those places for free or $1 or $2 and figure your own payments while they're talking, right? You can get those free in a lot of places. Another technique will help is that after you make the deal with the salesperson and the management, when you go into the F&I office and go in there and say, okay, I'm ready for you in the F&I, come in and sit down. Tell the person, okay, before we could go and before we talk about everything, before we start discussing things, I'd just like to be reminded of exactly where my monthly payment is right now before we start. We'll say something like, well, they told you what it was out there, right? And they said, no, I'd like you to figure it out right now and tell me where it is to make sure they did it right. And boy, that makes him back up, I want to tell you. Sure it does. That way he can't say, well, it wasn't me, I didn't realize the mistake. No, he'll know the mistake or no mistake, and that way you'll know. And if you catch him cheating, just get up and leave. Don't try to talk to him about it. Don't try to overcome it. Don't try to do anything. Just say, I'm out of here, man, because it's like a culture. If they cheat in one area, the dealership's going to be bad in every area, and that's how it is. And another thing is even if you didn't, let's say you got past the pack and they're not packing you and they're giving you monthly payments on the packages for stuff you need. F&I equipment, right? Rust-proof paints, all these things that they're offering. Ask them for the dollar value, too, on everything. Say, that's fine. I want to know what the dollar value is as well as the change in the monthly payment. I want both pieces of information. That also changes your thinking and helps you work it out, maybe better in your mind as to whether you want to do it and what it's cost you. For every $100 of additional products, your payment should change about $2 a month on a 60-month loan, $2.20. I suggest shopping the products they sell online before you go to the dealership so that you know the going rate. Like rust-proofing, if online is $500 and the dealer wants $800, then you know that you guys are crazy. I'm not paying $800. I can get it for $500. And guess what? They're very flexible when you're educated. If you know what you're talking about, they get very flexible about their rate. And some things you want to buy anyway. You might say, I don't want to listen, I don't want anything. No, don't do that either. Don't do that. There's things you may need. Like, give you an example. Rust-proofing in the Northeast adds to the resale value. It's not completely thrown out the window. When you pay $500 for rust-proofing and it protects your vehicle, that's good. It keeps it looking better longer. But also, when you go to sell it, the fact that it's been rust-proof, makes it easier to sell, even to the dealer, because he's got to sell it. So he needs every advantage he can have when he goes to sell it, right? Paint sealant, if priced right's a good idea. Gap insurance, if you don't put any money down, is a good idea. Extended warranties, if you're keeping the vehicle long enough, an extended warranty is a good idea. Only if you buy it from the manufacturer. Don't get some other company involved. If you're buying a Honda, make sure the warranty's from Honda or Ford or Chevy. Prepaid maintenance, again, if you're keeping the vehicle and you do your work at the dealership, then you should buy prepaid maintenance. You can have it all financed in there. Doesn't cost you anything. When you go back in every time to get the maintenance done, it's in there. Tire protection, if priced right, tire protection's a good idea. You have a blowout, they buy the tire, the wheel, everything. Scotch guard, definitely, if it's priced right, or if you do it yourself. It's like paint sealant. If you can't get a deal from the dealership, do it yourself, but do it, because it does add to the resale value. Safety lights, great if they're a responsible price, right? Almost every product the F&I sells has value to someone. And they are obligated to at least explain those products to you. But their price is 2 or 3 times what you can buy it for a lot of times. But it's still a good idea to listen. I don't buy much in the F&I department on a 3-year lease, but usually I do buy tire hazard if the price is in line. I suggest considering the shopping for F&I products before you go to dealerships. So if you know you're going to get paint sealant, rust-proof, and Scotch guard, shop around first. There's places to do it. Sure, you can find other places to get a price on. But I always say if you can get it near the same price, you should get it from the dealer because that makes them obligated, in another way that they're already obligated because they sold it to you. Due diligence is always better. Always check in advance. Another thing dealerships do to benefit the entire deal is spot delivery. That's common in dealerships, right? They give you a vehicle without a pre-approval from the bank. The next day, any question in the financing approval, I can use it as an excuse to bump the rate. Sure. They call you up the next day. You've already taken your plates off. Everything's done. Your vehicle's at the dealership. You got your new vehicle. You're all excited. And you say, hey, the bank didn't go through with the rate that you wanted. They want a higher rate because of your credit. 1%. Well, what are you going to do? Chances are people give in to it. Don't. You can take the vehicle back. You can take the bump, but you don't have to. You can just take it back. But you have to do something because chances are if your credit wasn't approved at the dealership before you left, they're having you sign a bailment agreement. And the bailment agreement says that you'll bring it back. They can legally pull the vehicle. That's more there for people that have, done fraud or something and trading in or whatever in their credit. But generally speaking, you're going to have to, they can bump you on the rate. And that's why I always tell people you should wait for approval if you can. Don't take the vehicle unless it's approved. That's what I do. And if it's approved, they don't need a bailment agreement. If the loan's approved, they'll say, well, it's approved. Then I'm not signing a bailment agreement. You don't need a bailment agreement if it's approved. Because they'll try to they'll say, oh, you're all set, but they'll have the bailment agreement in the paperwork. No, I'm not signing a bailment agreement. No, you said it's approved. It's approved, it isn't approved. It's approved, we don't need that. But see, that's the kind of stuff you run into because that's how they, especially in the big metro markets, they do things like that to bump a deal because you're just a number, one person. One other item I see being used a lot is extended terms for the first payment, 60 days or 90 days. Come in, no payments for 90 days. You buy a vehicle and your first payment doesn't start for 3 months. They make it seem like they're doing that free. It's never free. It's never, ever free. It's just tacked onto your financing charge. You think, great, 3 months. No, actually, if you switch the 90-day back to the normal 30-day, your payment for 60 months on $20,000 at 6% would drop $2 a month. It's not much, it's $120, but at least you realize you're not getting it for free. It's not a lot of difference, $2 a month, but you know what? That's $120. Even if the dealer was paying the bank as a promotion, it would be coming out somewhere. And don't forget, 90 days to the first payment means that your vehicle isn't paid for. If you have a 60-month loan, you 90 days to the first payment, well, you actually got a 63-month loan then, didn't you? Yeah. Or if you got a 66-month loan and you get no payments for 90 days, that's actually a 69-month loan. Yeah. If your loan with a national average, 68 months, which is the national average, that means with a 90 days of first payment, It's actually a 71-month loan from the time you pick it up until it's paid for. That's not a good thing, is it? I don't think so. That's one of the main causes for minus equity, a slower payoff rate. The longer it takes you to pay it off, the more chances you're going to be in minus equity. Dealership business managers can be helpful and productive for you. They can do a lot of them are very good. But who knows who they are? I don't know who they are. I don't know who the bad ones and the good ones are. Can't tell by just meeting them. They're all pretty slick, right? Always shop rate. Always get all the information when being quoted a payment. Always. And when you first sit down with F&I, make sure that they've given you the monthly payment again. Read about all the different products they sell before you make a deal. Know the current market value for those products. You know, it's like keys. They want to replace your keys. We got this insurance you can buy, and they'll replace your keys. Because electronic keys are expensive, right? Well, there's also places on the net that replace keys for peanuts compared to the price of the policy. But you have to look to find that out. You know, that's the thing. That's why I said research is important if you're going to buy something. That's important. When the F&I office, you got to be prepared for that. That's probably the single most important spot in the deal. You know, making the deal is one thing, but that's the person that arranges your loan, all the extra products, make sure your paperwork is done right, make sure your trade's handled properly, make sure your liens and all the paperwork is done right. That's pretty important stuff. You need to know what you're doing when you go in there. No question about it. Well, that's Deal Talk for this week. If you have a question or a request or even a comment, please call or email me. Callers, it's 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071, or email dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please don't forget to do a review. Important. And do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. I'm telling you, how can you not for $3? Really, it's just so common sense. It could $3 is, you know, where was I? I was in the mall the other day, and I got the hankering for potato chips. I went over to the machine to get a bag of potato chips. It was $3 for potato chips. And I thought to myself, holy smokes, I get a bag of potato chips that'll be gone in 5 minutes for $3, or I could get the Informed Buyer. How can you not? If you really want to push the show for more information, and you can use that Informed Buyer, and you can go back to the 300 or better episodes that have been done and read some and listen to some of the past episodes. They're all titled for what the most of the podcast is about. So if it's a podcast about leasing, it'll say something in the title about leasing. Whatever's in the title tells you what it's about. And there's 300 of them. And I've gone over the same subjects 3 or 4 times in some cases, 3, 4, 5 times sometimes if it's important, but from different angles with different rules and different information. Like leasing today. That's huge what they're trying to do with leasing. That's huge. They're trying to rob the public, and no question about it. This is the most dishonest move by a car manufacturer in a long, long time. This is just totally outrageous. However I can help you, call me, contact me. You'll hear from me. Everybody does. And remember, every payment you get, like we talked about earlier, CPI, complete payment information, amount, months, rate, any required down payment, and if it's a lease, how many miles a year. Get those terms every single time. Not just once, every time they quote your payment. And every price you get should be all in. Every single cost required to buy the vehicle. Whether it's tax, tag, dealer fee, options, I don't care what it is. Everything is in there. Every single thing. They call that OTD. Out the door.